Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of the Duke Men's Lacrosse Show. I'm JD Blitch, alongside Coach John Danowski. Coach, the game on Sunday was an interesting one. Duke fell 12-10 against Loyola, but it was a game with two very different halves. First one bad, second one good. What were your takeaways from the game?
I was sad after the game. The assistant coaches were sad, and the players were sad and angry, You always got to tip your cap to your opponent, but we only see the opponent for 2 hours. We see ourselves every day, I think the consensus of the feeling was that we weren't fundamentally sound, and we didn't execute like we were capable, which is disappointing coming out of spring break, coming out of some double sessions, some extra shooting, some extra work defensively. We were just extremely disappointed, and not with the outcome. We didn't deserve to win, but really disappointed with our execution during the course of the 60 minutes.
And what would you say will be the main focus for the team during practice this week?
Fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentals. Stick in front, running through ground balls, throwing the ball forward, making simple passes. Playing with your head up, defensively, communication, just simple tasks that need to be done well.
And in the Richmond game last week, Joe Robertson made his return from injury. How big will it be to have him back at attack going forward this season?
Well, it's kind of interesting that our two best games of the year offensively have been without him.
Mm-hmm.
And this past weekend, he scored a goal, but the offense really, certainly that first half, really bogged down. So I think we're in an interesting time in the season where we have to look at, our schemes. We have to look at our personnel. Before we have one last non-conference game before we get into the ACC schedule. And we really have to look at, who should be where.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned on one of our past episodes that a team never stays the same over time. It either gets better or worse, and I really like that way of thinking about it. But now that we're past the halfway point in the regular season, if you were to look back on what has taken place so far, what would you say is the biggest difference between the team now and where it was to start the season?
Well, we're 10 games of more experience, and I think the disappointing thing is that it didn't look like that experience had any effect on players' confidence, on what they've learned in previous games, and so I think we're kind of reeling, to be honest. I think the coaching staff is on its heels a little bit. Players are resilient. They're going to class today. It's a beautiful day here in Durham. They're thinking about other things. I think the coaches are more set back than anything else.
Okay, and I'm curious, in an average week, how much of practice time is devoted to past games where you're looking at game film and trying to plug any holes versus time spent preparing for future games and the upcoming opponent for that specific week?
Well, the first day back is always about what just happened. The players deserve feedback. They deserve some information about last week's game and how it ranks relative to what they've done before as a group. We watch film, and usually the films that we watch are lowlights, meaning we want to see the things that we didn't do well. We only have 4 hours for practice. So if you take an hour out to watch practice, now that's, to watch film, that's 3 hours. So, and guys have class schedules. Some guys have classes right up until 3 o'clock. Some guys have classes at 7 o'clock. So, you have to be mindful of the student's schedule, and you've got to be able to fit some of this stuff in and then move on, let that go, learn from the past, and prepare for the future.
Mm-hmm. So is there a percentage of time you'd say that's dedicated to the week's opponent coming up, or is it just vary each week?
Well, because this week we have a shorter week because we lost Monday because the game was moved to Sunday. Mm-hmm. It's a 3-1. So it'll be Tuesday or 4-1. It'll be 3-1. It'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
Will be our opponent, and it'll be today. Will be what happened last week.
Fantastic. And what is one piece of advice you would give to a first-time head coach? If it were my first time being a head coach, what would you tell me?
I would say think about in other fields, right? Because when you win, it's wonderful. When you lose, it's the end of the world. No, but what I would say is, it requires being a head coach requires the ability to wear a lot of hats and the ability to trust your assistant coaches, the ability to be really patient at times, be demanding at others, and to be able to know when it's appropriate to flip that switch. But it's not easy. Not easy.
Yes, sir. With flipping that switch, is that something that just takes time to learn?
Yeah, I think some of it's instinctual. Some of it's you have to learn how each team reacts to you and to the situation. Today, we'll flip the switch, and it'll be tough love. Love them all, but it's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Boys are going to have some thick skin today. It doesn't mean we don't love them. It just means that they need to be reinforced to do things the right way all the time. Not some of the time, not because it's not carrying over. Right now, we practice much better than we play. And it drives you crazy because you think that the team was capable of looking a certain way or playing a certain way. But then when they don't, you wonder, and as a coach, it's like being a professor in a class. If everybody fails the test, is it because the students didn't pay attention, or is it because the material wasn't taught well? Which is it? And I always look at it, it's like half and half. Some of it is the professor's responsibility, and some of it's the student's responsibility, and that's I've always looked at it that way.
I think that's a good way of looking at it. And who was your coaching idol when you first began coaching, and how did they affect the way in which you coach your teams?
I would say probably the first one would be my father.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, my father was a junior high football coach, and his players really respected him. They were somewhat afraid of him. This is back now, in the 60s, and that was kind of the way things were done. But he taught them right from wrong. He taught them how to block and tackle. He taught them how to prepare to be the best JV players they were going to be. He knew his role. Now, before I really kind of understood everything, my dad was the head football coach at Fordham before that. And so, he had coached in college for 8 years, coached right after World War II, which was a very transitional time in college athletics, very, very difficult for, I think, a lot of schools. And Fordham ended up dropping football. But he loved being a phys ed teacher. He loved being a junior high football coach, and he was very good at it. But I love the relationship, the effect that he had on young boys' lives at that time.
No doubt, that's a big influence. And what about anyone you personally had as a coach? Who would you say the best coach you had is?
I tell you what, I absolutely loved all my junior high coaches. It was like junior high was a big deal growing up. If you watch the show The Wonder Years, the original show, that's what I lived. And I can tell you about Jim Coyne and John Bozzella, who were our football coaches, Sam Fife, the basketball coach, Mike Nastry, who was our lacrosse coach. I could tell you in high school, Alan Lowe and Jack Cayley, who were our lacrosse coaches, Chet Zabak, basketball coach, Tom Frieda, Alan Lowe again for football. These men were all incredibly influential in my growing up. They were consistent. They loved what they were doing, and and they loved us.
That's awesome. And what would you say is the biggest upset you've ever pulled as a coach? Could be anywhere, not just at Duke, but where you were really not favored to win the game, but managed to pull it out.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. One year I was coaching the Merrick Avenue Rams, 9th grade lacrosse, and we were playing Brookside for the second time. And Brookside beat us the first time. They were in district, and they were our rivals. And I don't think anybody thought that we could turn it around and beat them the second time. And we played them on a beautiful Saturday morning. I can still see the day, and couldn't tell you the score, but I remember turning it around that day. And I was living in Long Beach on Long Island at the time, and I remember going home with a really just a gratified feeling that it was a competition, and we beat them, and it was awesome.
That's fantastic. And let's go to the face-off for our first-time listeners. This is a section Coach and I have where it's more fun fact questions. It may not be about just lacrosse. And Coach, you're a big New York Giants fan. For those who don't know, Coach's dad, Ed Danowski, was also a star player for the Giants in the 30s. And I want to know, what's the best Giants game you've ever been to?
Giants beat the Washington Redskins 17-0, I think the score was. Actually, it'd be 2. Beat the Redskins at the old Giant Stadium, and shut them out in the NFC Championship. The other one would be beating the 49ers. And again, I don't know. It wasn't the NFC. It might have been the NFC Championship, but beat them, to advance in the tournament.
Do you still have the ticket to either of those games?
I have both.
Oh, that's
tickets.
awesome.
Well, I've always saved my ticket stubs.
You got to.
Now, the Duke Carolina game last week, I got an NFT. I'm just rolling with the changes.
There we go. Yes, sir. And what was it like watching the David Tyree helmet catch in the Super Bowl?
Some of that stuff is just absolutely legendary. When you think about it, that's the last catch he ever made in the NFL. You would think a guy like that would have gone on to an unbelievable career. But, Mario Manningham's catch on the sideline and Tyree's catch and then Plaxico Burress in the corner, and we win. So just awesome.
It was a legendary game. And another sports question, it's March Madness. Are you making a bracket this year?
By NCAA rule, we could make a bracket, but we are not allowed to partake in any gambling.
Okay.
Because I am
that makes sense.
I'm an employee here at Duke University. But if I was, hypothetically now, man, don't sleep on the Duke Blue Devils. They're gaining a lot of experience, and let's go Duke.
There we go. Agreed with that. Football season conveniently ends right before the lacrosse regular season, but basketball is a direct conflict time-wise, so I get that as well. And let's talk about the Towson game coming up this weekend. It's a 6 p.m. game in Washington, D.C. at Audi Field, home of D.C. United Soccer. Coach, how did Duke get the opportunity to play in a 20,000-seat stadium on Saturday?
Well, I got a call from Justin Howard, who runs a sports promotion outfit in Washington, D.C., in the area, and he said he was going to be hosting a triple header. Wanted us to be involved. Would we be willing to give up our home game? And I said, absolutely. I thought that playing in a venue like this would be great preparation, perhaps, for something down the road. Now, for this year, there may not be any tournament for us, NCAA tournament. So it would just be an exciting opportunity in and of itself. Let's just carpe diem, enjoy the day, and let's go out there and have some fun. So I think that's what we're going to concentrate on, is playing in a really cool venue against a great opponent.
For sure. And what challenges will Towson present on the field?
Well, Towson, very much like Loyola, will be really excited. Towson had just beat Loyola last week at Loyola, so they're licking their chops, right? There's they can smell the. I'm going to use, that's one cliche. Now I'll throw in another cliche, right? There's blood in the water, and they're the shark, and they're going to come after us because they have nothing to lose. They have their conference. When you're in the CAA, all you got to do is come in the top 4. If you finish in the top 4, then you have a conference tournament and a chance to qualify for the NCAA tournament. So for them, this is house money. They're excited. That's a third house money, right? That's a third cliche I just used. But what are you going to do? They are they're very talented and very, very capable.
And what would you say is their biggest strength?
Well, their coaching staff. Coach
Okay.
Madeline is a phenomenal coach. He is, and the players take on the likeness, personality of the coach. They are extremely they'll be extremely tough. They recruit tough kids and athletic, and they're going to step up for the challenge for sure.
Absolutely. should be a great game. Maryland plays Virginia at 3:30 on the same field right before. That'll be a matchup between number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the country, and Duke gets to play right after that at 6 o'clock. So it should be a great day of lacrosse. Coach, best of luck on Saturday.
JD, man, always a pleasure. Missed you last week. Hope you had a great spring break.
Thank you. It was good. Some buddies and I went to Asheville, got some good hiking in. It was really refreshing. And
Are there bugs there when you hike?
not this time
Worms?
of year.
Spiders?
No, no, sir.
Okay, because I'm not an outdoor guy.
I don't believe that for a second. But
Bugs, spiders. To me, camping is, or roughing it would be, Motel 6. That would be like really hard for me. But I admire your chutzpah on that one.
Thank you. That's going to do it for episode 4 of the Duke Men's Lacrosse Show. We appreciate you tuning in and hope you took away some knowledge from Coach and I's discussion. Next week will be episode 5 when we continue our conversation, and we look forward to seeing you then. Go Duke!